Welcome back to Out of Touch with John Alden and Dustin Schutte. No Mitchell Page this week. He is, you know where he's at, right, Dustin? Before I reveal, I mean, you may already know. It's not like it's a secret, but do you know where Mitchell's at this week?
Is he doing the Barstool?
Yeah, he's out in Arizona, out in there doing his little golfing shindig where I believe last year they made it to the podium.
Doing his little golf thing. Swinging his
golfing
club.
Shindig. Yeah, looking all cute and fancy, walking around the golf course in his little mini skirt, like a. I don't even know where I'm taking that, but
I don't know where you're going with that either.
Welcome into Out of Touch. It's been a while, and it's interesting now that we do these bi-weekly. Like 2 weeks ago, it was Mitchell and I. Now it's 2 weeks gone by since then. It's Dustin and I. We go sometimes a long time without conversating, and Dustin and I had a pretty extensive sports conversation beforehand that we'll probably avoid that here, but some of us are happy about our team. Some of us are not happy about our teams. We'll just leave it at that, at least when it comes to the football
probably
side
best.
of things.
Yeah.
I want to ask you this, though. Did you watch, or I should say attempt to watch the Mike Tyson-Jake Paul fight on Friday night last week?
No. And because it's such a joke. There's no chance that Mike Tyson was trying. There's 0% chance.
I think he was trying.
I don't want to live in a world. Okay, so this is where my conspiracy theory goes off. This is where if I had like a siren, it would be spinning and going red, flashing red. If you look at the videos, like Mike Tyson as a professional boxer would not miss a lot of the opportunities that Jake Paul presented. He left his glove down an awful lot. There was one time when Tyson was pulling punches. There was times when Mike Tyson was like biting his glove to try to refrain from. So I think it was rigged.
I think rigged. I think there was a level of it that was staged because again, I don't know how much of it you watched, but through the first couple of rounds, it did look like Tyson was at least, maybe trying to knock him out, even if that was maybe not part of the plan. But once you got into like the middle portion of the fight, it just felt like both of them were standing there and eventually taking hits from each other. And maybe there was a pact to where once Mike Tyson got tired that Jake Paul wouldn't actually try to kill him. And not that he would kill him, but, for two fighters who are that big of an age gap, I believe it's 27 and 58 or something along those lines. I mean, when your age gap is bigger than the age of the younger guy fighting, that seems like it's a major problem.
That feels like it's an advantage for the younger fighter. Yes.
And you even saw in the last round, again, if you watched it, that Jake Paul was just kind of, you mentioned like leaving his gloves down. At one point when there was just a few seconds remaining, he like did a little like kind of bow down sensei, like respect type of thing. It's almost like he realized like, hey, there's no point in going any further with this. But again, maybe that was all part of the plan anyway. Both of them made what, $60 million? I don't know if that's accurate, but I mean,
probably.
And not only that, the broadcast itself on Netflix was one of the more disastrous things that, and not that it wasn't expected, because Netflix did try to do a live stream at one point. I think it was about, maybe not exactly a year ago, but about a year ago, there's a show. Are you familiar with this? Maybe you're not. Called Love is Blind. Are you familiar with that show, Dustin?
Yeah, I've heard of it. I don't know if I've actually watched it. It sounds like, okay, I don't want to say it sounds like a stupid concept. It sounds like an interesting
it
concept.
is. My wife loves it, and I'll say it's a stupid concept, though.
But I don't, I understand the premise of it, but again, it's all reality TV.
Yes.
Like that's all this stuff is. But okay, so continue your point.
Yeah. So Netflix was attempting to do their first ever live stream for the finale of this show called Love is Blind. And they were so unprepared, I guess is probably the only way to put it, that they couldn't even get the stream off the ground whenever they tried to do it. They ended up just pre-recording the show and then releasing it later. And I believe they haven't done any live stream events since now when they did the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight. And there were people all over the country, it seemed like, that once there were enough people streaming the fight that they couldn't contain the amount of people who were trying to watch this. I did hear, and we even experienced this ourselves, if you pulled out a laptop or a phone or something that wasn't your TV, you were able to stream it a lot more cleaner for whatever reason. I don't know why that was the case, but I feel like this could become a major problem once we get to Christmas Day this year when Netflix is supposed to live stream their first ever NFL games.
This could be a disaster.
What could go wrong,
what a
right?
What a beautiful disaster that would be. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I understand the sports aspect because you can't, like, people aren't really interested in it after the fact. But something like Love is Blind, and maybe it was like a test run because it doesn't need to be live, and let's just see how this goes. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if Netflix knows what they're doing.
And I've always thought Christmas Day was kind of the NBA's time to shine. And I'm not a big NBA fan, and I know you are. You're a big Pacers guy. But didn't Christmas Day used to be, like, obviously we have Thanksgiving for the NFL. I always thought Christmas belonged to the NBA.
It did. And then a couple years ago, the NFL infringed itself because it knows it can dominate any holiday at once. Okay, here's my question, though. Do you actually watch sports on Christmas Day?
So I remember usually growing up with the family, after we would finish gifts and, all that fun stuff, normally part of, the aftermath of everything was turning on the TV and just having the NBA games on in the background. Would I ever sit down and watch it avidly? No. But were they always on TV or on our TV? Yes.
Okay. I've kind of been in that situation where the games are on. I never watch. And I don't even remember. I think maybe the Pacers played the Pistons once on Christmas Day. Now, they may have played in other years, but I don't remember it. I am all in on A Christmas Story on Christmas Day. I will watch it 37 times in a 24-hour span. It's not possible to watch that movie that many times in that span, but I will try.
So Christmas Story is, I think we've talked about this. I don't know if it's been on this show or just in passing, but is that your favorite Christmas movie?
Yes, 100%. And I don't even know, this is weird. I feel like we did talk about this last year. Yeah. It is a movie that, so I think it's TBS, airs it 24/7, beginning at 7 o'clock on Christmas Eve, and then runs it through 7 p.m. on Christmas Day. I will legitimately, if nobody else is around, if it's just me, and I have had some Christmases where it's just me, I will leave it on for 24 hours. It is just so I think charming is the word I'm looking for. Like, it's just a charm. Like, you can have it on the background. Yeah. I know the scenes are coming up. I've seen it a million times. It never gets old to me. But it's the only time I watch it. Like, I don't usually watch it like December 2nd. I'm not going to watch it. I usually watch it Christmas Eve into Christmas Day, and that's it.
Well, let me ask you this, because I feel like, and I don't know if these two movies are necessarily rivalry movies when it comes to, classic Christmas films, but I do feel like there's a camp like yours that loves Christmas Story, but I also feel like there is a camp that really loves Christmas Vacation. Are you somebody who dislikes Christmas Vacation?
No, I like Christmas Vacation. Okay. I like that movie a lot. I think it's really good.
Because I feel like, at least, and maybe it's a regional thing. I don't know if Christmas Story is big up in your part of Indiana where you're from, and where I'm at is more of a Christmas Vacation area. It'd be very weird if that's how it is, but I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I don't know. My family was all on board with Christmas Story, Christmas Vacation. We are a Christmas movie family, so there's not a lot of them we don't like. I'm trying to think.
I gotta say this. I've seen, actually, I don't know that I've ever watched A Christmas Story all the way through. I know what the movie is, I know what it's about, and I know the iconic scenes, but I can't tell you that I've ever sat down and watched the whole thing from start to finish.
Sure. So a lot of people hate it. Well, I don't know if hate's strong, but they just don't get it. And I've always wondered this, John, and I don't know if it's true or not, and I'll probably never know. I have a theory, though, because I grew up in around, I don't even know how to say this. So I grew up in a small rural community, but around me were small cities. So not like Indianapolis or Fort Wayne or South Bend or Louisville or Lexington, but I'm just going to throw these out here because I'm from Indiana and I don't know some of these other towns in Kentucky, but like a Kokomo, right? Or maybe like a Bardstown. That might be a good example. I don't know. So it's like a smaller city. And I feel like even though it's supposed to be set in whatever decade, I don't even remember, 60s, 70s. I feel like that was a lot of that stuff was like I could connect with. And I don't know if you lived in like a Chicago, a New York, an Indianapolis, if you would quite get it. And so I don't know if that's a thing or not. That's just my
I could see that being a thing because I mean most of the classic, maybe I'm wrong about the classics, but for some reason my mind was drifting into like the Hallmark style Christmas movies. Those are always, I feel like, in big cities, right?
Well, now you've got to get the big city person. There's either the man or the woman is the big city person.
That's what it is.
The other person is a small town. Actually, they're usually both from small towns. And then one person is a city slicker all of a sudden, living in Chicago or New York. But then they come on down to the farm, and then they realize they've been missing out on the Christmas spirit until they find this random other person who has been divorced and has 3 kids, and they're just going to move in with each other after 37 years of not seeing each other. It is so frustrating. Do you know what bugs me? Okay, now you got me on a tangent in a soapbox. I could
hold that one. I want to add to what you're saying real quick and just hold on to that. The other trope is you have one from LA, sunny LA, and then you have snowy New York, and one of them moves or like finds them, and they have to decide whether or not they're going to, leave home and stay with their new significant other. I feel like that's a common one too.
It is a common one. How do we do this every time that we skip holidays? We have Thanksgiving coming up, and we're talking about Christmas.
That is true, but I'm not even really somebody who fits into this, but I guess we're doing it right now. I mean, November 1st, for a good majority of people, whether like they'll include Thanksgiving in this, but that's kind of the beginning of Christmas season for them.
Shout out.
I feel like you fit into that category.
Shout out Gritty. Jennifer, because I know she's a November. I think she had her Christmas tree up before Halloween this year. I apologize.
There's some nuttos. I mean, in my neck of the woods. Oh, yeah, I just made that up, of course. But there's a neighborhood close to ours that sometimes I'll drive through on my way to work, and they had Halloween decorations up in the end of August.
Oh, okay. That's a little premature.
Yeah, that's before we had even any sense of cool down in temperatures, I feel like, which is pretty wild.
That's when you're still sweating your ass off by just stepping foot outside, man.
Those are the people who are just trying to speak fall into existence. That's what those people are doing.
Yes, I am that person because, so I'm going to talk about the
I know I took you off your tangent. That's my fault.
I have got it all right up here. I've been ready to talk about this. I'm upset about it. So I like summer because I don't know why. I just like summer. But by August, I'm ready to get it over with. So I'm like wishing that fall will be here. So
August is without a doubt the worst month of the entire year. And I say that, and my birthday's in August.
I agree. Because you're just waiting for cooler weather because you're tired and over the heat.
You're sick of it. It's kind of like the beginning of March if you hate winter.
Yeah, good point. I like that comparison. As far as Christmas, I'm not quite a November 1st is Christmas. I do start listening to Christmas jazz on November 1st.
That's right. I remember you are a Christmas jazz dude. I remember that.
Yeah, and I will break out my Christmas mugs because what's the point of putting them in the cupboard for 11 months? I should have them out in the cupboard for only 10 months.
And that's a good point because as somebody who loves drinking coffee, I absolutely hate when we get to, I guess, so it's weird. This might sound a little, I don't know if this is OCD or if I'm just a weirdo, but I have obviously Christmas mugs, but there's also mugs that kind of fit into like just a general winter category. Like it's just like a snowy themed mug, I guess. It's not necessarily Christmas themed. So you kind of have to put half of them away, but you keep the others out until, springtime.
Yeah, I like that. Okay. So I break out the Christmas jazz because that's what I do. And then I break out the Christmas mugs in November. And then those are all out. And then after Thanksgiving is when I go like, okay, Christmas movies, real Christmas music, all that good stuff. Now, Hallmark. I have some things that bug me about this because number one, have you ever noticed that they go to a freaking tree farm? It's always a tree farm, and they have one of two things. It's either the world's best apple cider or the world's best hot chocolate. It bothers me that there are so many places that are staking claim to the world's best hot beverage.
I always think of this isn't a Hallmark movie, but it's Elf. Whenever Will Ferrell, Buddy the Elf, goes into the coffee shop and he's like, "World's best coffee! Congratulations!" That's almost like a spoof off of that, I guess.
The other part of the Hallmark movie that bothers me is at the end of every movie. This is how every single one of them ends, aside from them moving in together and, I don't know, experiencing Christmas 365, I guess. It always ends with them being like, all right, I'm going to pretend. All right, Merry Christmas, John. Merry Christmas, Dustin. And then they gaze into each other's eyes. And I'm like, what? This is not how real people go through life. Nobody says the other person's name. You are not going to say you're not going to say your wife's name when you say Merry Christmas when you wake up on Christmas morning or when you go to bed on Christmas night. It doesn't happen. These are things that don't happen in real life, and it bugs me.
It's so cringy, and I guess the audience that they're going for, for the majority of the people who consume these Hallmark movies, I would believe, are people who I don't want to say have been single for a long time, but like they don't know what real life is like when it comes to, a relationship and the holidays. And so this is their way in romanticizing it, and it becomes something that it's, not in any way, shape, or form real.
I don't know why we have to romanticize Christmas. I don't know why we have to do this to this holiday. It seems like it's pretty magical in itself.
Imagine if we had Hallmark, I don't know, Mother's Day movies. That's really out of left field. Like a Hallmark 4th of July movie.
Yes,
that wouldn't work.
Well,
no, it'd be super. No, you could do like the whole your cliche ending scene would be you light up the fireworks and the significant others are kissing underneath of the fireworks, celebrating their patriotism.
They're holding up sparklers underneath instead of
Happy
mistletoe.
4th of July, honey. Happy Independence Day.
That. See, you can't do that on Hallmark Channel, John, because they've dedicated the entire month of July to Christmas in July.
All that
that's
channel
is Christmas movies all year round, I think.
Hold on, there's got to be a Christmas in July Hallmark movie, right? Like, is there one that's actually about having Christmas in July? That has to be a thing if it isn't already. If not, we need to direct it and patent it right now.
Christmas in July.
We can enlist
Hallmark
Mitchell and Laura,
movie.
and we can even have a cameo. They could even have their baby in it, and it would be a whole big thing.
I think it's actually just Christmas in July on I think it's legitimately just Christmas movies.
Well, we've just created a new idea because they've already used the same idea 80,000 times. We can freshen up the typical Hallmark movie and actually do Christmas in July.
And what we're going to do is we're going to actually air it in March. So we're going to call it Christmas in July in March.
And here's the premise. It would be a car salesman, right? He's the man, and he meets somebody who is, of course, interested in buying a car, because I feel like Christmas in July is a common car salesman celebration, I guess. And so you could really lean into that.
You came with ideas to the table, John. It feels like you've been thinking about this for a while.
I will say this. I'm on it right now. I'm in a great mood. I'm well rested. Yeah. And this actually can take us into another conversation, because this is something I don't think I've talked with Mitchell about this, but I don't think I've told you about it. I have changed shifts at iHeartRadio or iHeartMedia, whatever you want to call it. I am now getting up at 3:45 in the morning every single day and getting to work at 4:30. And it is insane. I don't know if I like it yet. I do know this. The other day this week, I was one of the most exhausted couple of days I'd ever had, because my body is trying to fight off me trying to adjust to this new schedule. So on one particular night, try to go to bed at 9 p.m. and the brain just won't shut off, right? So I don't actually fall asleep till close to midnight. And, work comes around, you got to get up, right? So you get up at the typical time. It sucks. And I got home that day, and actually, real quick, I went home first. So this is one of those days where I had a buffer in between. I had to go in and come back. So it was even that much worse. Went home, took an hour and a half nap, went back in for just a very short amount of time to record with some people, and then came back home and slept for nearly the rest of the evening into the night. And it was a horrible day, but I woke up the next morning, which was today, and we're feeling rejuiced because, if you don't sleep well and you have to stay up for the entirety of a day, it can ruin a lot of things. I'm glad we didn't record this, by the way. We're recording this on a Wednesday. If we would have recorded this last night, I don't know what would have happened. Probably, I'm so glad we did this today.
I'm glad that I had to cover a Purdue basketball game yesterday.
Oh, and when you said that, I was so happy. I was like, "Oh, this is fantastic. I can feel much better tomorrow."
Yeah. Okay. I think now I'm a big sports fan and I like to watch them live, so that part of it would be hard for me. However,
and yes, go ahead, keep going.
I do think that making that shift at this time of year is probably about as easy as it's going to get, because it's darker so much earlier. So it's not like in the middle of the summer when it's like 11:30 at night and the sun is still slowly sinking down. Like you get so much.
I've already thought about that home, because I can't imagine. Yeah, that's true. Getting home early enough for that. And then the fact that, like, when I need to be tired at, 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, whatever it may be, with the sun already being down, instead of, having an extra 2 hours of daylight, that's going to suck. That's going to suck when the summer comes around. Because I love staying up late. That's just my human nature. And it will fight against me when we get to that time of year. Not to mention, and this is public information now, so I don't mind saying this on the show, not to mention I'll have a newborn. And so that's going to be a whole new level of things going on come next May. Potentially, and Dustin knows this, potentially on Dustin's birthday.
That's the best day. May 8th is the best day to be born. I would know. I'm experienced.
What is it? I do want to ask you then, I guess, like, what's the benefit to having a May birthday? What do you enjoy about, that being the time of year to celebrate yourself?
I don't know. It's usually pretty nice outside. That's cool.
That's true. It's very late spring, early, not quite summer, but it's really May. Honestly, if you're asking me, probably has the best temperatures of any month throughout the entire year.
It's a very good temperature, very temperate month. I like, usually the NBA playoffs are underway, so that's always an added bonus. I got to go.
That's true.
We went, Abby and
Pacers had a hell of a run last year.
Yeah, Mitchell and Laura went to a playoff game last year. That was part of my birthday present. Went to a baseball game, birthday present. And then it's like, it kind of breaks up the holidays too. Like you usually get Easter.
Yeah, there's other than Mother's Day.
Early April. Then you get I was actually born on Mother's Day. Really? I don't know what day Mother's Day falls on. Yes, I was born on Mother's Day. I don't know what day that falls on this year.
Is it always the first Sunday or the second Sunday? I don't know what the difference. I feel like it's the second Sunday. Because I don't know. Yeah, because it's never May 1st, right? Because if it was the first Sunday, then it could be a May 1st.
Right. Yeah.
And one thing around our neck of the woods, we have Derby Day. That's always the first Saturday of the month. So there is a slight chance that she could be a Derby baby, which would be interesting. Yes.
See,
I'm not the biggest fan of the Derby. I've never even been. I live here.
Really?
I've never been to the Derby, and I live here. I've been to Churchill Downs, but I'm not a big Derby. It's fun, but like I don't get as hyped up about it as most people around here do, I feel like.
I have never been. I've wanted to go. Well, I don't know how to say this.
I'd much rather watch the Grandparents Derby.
See, to me, it feels like an awfully long day for such a short event. Like, if you go and tailgate for like, even at a night game, let's say you get there at like 11, if you tailgate for 7-8 hours, you at least get a 4-hour game, right? 3.5, 4-hour football game. So it feels like it's worth your time. If I'm going there and watching a 2-minute horse race,
Well, and and you may or may not be aware, they do have other races throughout the day.
Yes, right. But I don't know that I would have that much interest in horse. If I was like a big fan of horse racing, then that might be different. But I'm like, I just want to watch the Kentucky Derby. I think it would be cool to go, but it feels like it would be also a big hassle to go for that.
And I suck at betting horses. Like I've done it just for the novelty of it. But there's people who are like experts and like they're sitting there breaking down, what this jockey's done and what this horse has done, and it's just kind of like I don't get how people like. I know we care about collegiate athletes and amateur athletes, what they do. I don't get how people have the time to care about what an animal does to be prepared for a race around a dirt or a turf track, whatever it may be.
I just want to go sometime, and I don't know how. I mean, I know how betting works. I'm not a gambler, but just one time I'd like to go and put like $50 on the horse with the worst odds, and then see if I can make thousands of dollars.
And many people could have done that a couple of years ago. There was a horse named Rich Strike who was a fill-in because there was another horse that had scratched, and the odds on it were unbelievably terrible, and it ended up winning the entire thing, which again, I don't know if it was the worst odds ever to win the whole thing, but I mean, if you were somebody who did exactly what Dustin was just describing, you could be a very rich human being if you do something like that.
Yes, that sounds like that would be up my alley, because I don't know anything else about horse races. So for me, I would just be like, yeah, I'll take the horse with the terrible odds. And if I hit it big, then congrats to me.
And I don't even think I've ever realized how big of an event it actually is around here until I've gotten older, because there are legitimately so many people that would otherwise never come to Kentucky except for the Derby. And I'm sure it's similar with things in Indiana, like the Indy 500 and stuff like that. But like you'll get like every year they send us at the station like a list of celebrities that are attending this like big party or whatever. And one guy who's always on the list, this is a very random guy, but he comes to the Derby every single year, is Joey Fatone.
He loves horse racing, man.
Evidently, it's very weird that he makes an effort to come to the Derby every. Is he NSYNC or Backstreet Boys? I can never. The only one I know for sure is the only one I only know for sure is Justin Timberlake's NSYNC, just because I like Justin Timberlake.
Sure. Yep.
Who's the Backstreet Boys guy? Like who's the main?
There's a lot of them. Lance.
Is there like a main one though?
I don't. Lance Bass is the only one I know of. I don't know.
I don't know. Lance Bass was in sync, but whatever.
I don't.
We're not going to talk about boy bands, I don't think.
Hold on. No, I got to figure this out.
Now that I guess we might as well just figure out who we're talking about. Was Lance Bass in sync?
Oh, that's a terrible miss. I did not.
Is Nick Carter? Is he the one that's?
Oh,
I guess they all sing technically because they're a boy band, right? Boy band, they all sing.
Yeah. Yeah, so. Nick Carter was a member of Backstreet Boys. Okay, yep. We should move on from this topic because clearly I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we're getting into... One thing I love, though, is when one topic turns into something else and then it turns into something else. We got all the way here from the Netflix discussion that began.
We did. This is how out of touch works. We have no idea.
And speaking of out of touch, and the reason I want to talk about this next thing is because I think you put this on Twitter the other day, and I've wondered the same thing. Why is it that people, and I think this is a Gen Z thing, why is it that people like to record themselves having a meltdown and then posting it on social media?
I cannot figure this out. So, okay, I'm just going to preface this so we don't have to get into this part of the discussion. I don't care how anyone votes ever. I don't care.
Yeah, and this doesn't have to be about the election because people do it for other reasons.
Yes, but the reason I'm prefacing that is because it was like rampant after the election, right? So again, I don't care how anybody voted, don't care about politics. I'm not going to talk about that part of it. But yes, the need for people to like have this meltdown reaction and then record yourself being a maniac is I don't even like. If I have trouble getting words out on this podcast, I'm like, maybe we should cut that part. I can't imagine recording myself going through this lunatic phase where I'm just shouting at the camera like at your worst, and you want people to see that. I mean, I know it's for attention, but I don't know how we got to this point.
And I get, and I'm not a big TikTok person, but I've seen some of this come through like on Instagram as well. And I know they're kind of one and the same with reels and stuff like that. But I remember there was somebody who had, I think they'd like clipped it in, like they could tell somebody was like, they have to, when someone sets up a video to do this for whether it be one of those two apps, like it shows them, it's like, for example, there's this person sitting on their bed and they're like physically like moving their arms and you can tell they're screaming or whatever. And then the person does the stitch, right? And they're showing like how this has to go for the person creating this behind the scenes. And it shows them like sitting the camera, making sure it's on the right angle. And then they look and then they like cover their eyes and then they start crying. And then like 6 or 7 seconds will go by and then they'll look completely normal and turn it off. Like, I just don't understand the mental gymnastics, if you will, that you have to go through to think that this is, I mean, maybe these people do it all for content and maybe they don't really have any of these emotions. They just know what works on these apps. But if it's genuine, I don't get how anybody, just like you said, Dustin, I don't get how anybody would, honestly, maybe it's just confidence. I don't know. I don't get how anybody would have the wherewithal to just say, oh, this is something I should put on social media. I want to look like this in front of the entire world.
Clearly it got them attention at some point. And then there's like this ridiculous amount of, I'm going to call it virtue signaling, where people just like, they just try to be, I don't even know if I have the words to describe what I want to say, but they have to be so much more morally superior than everybody and make better points and fit into the conversation and the narrative, whatever that narrative is, because they're afraid of being left out. But I don't think they're actually afraid of being left out. I think what they want is likes, retweets, follows, because everybody and their bleep grandmother wants to be an influencer and wants to make money off of Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, TikTok, all this stuff. Let me tell you something. These people, that very few and far between, are making money off these apps. Like, so just quit it. Just stop. You're annoying me.
You've mentioned Blue Sky, and have you jumped onto that Blue Sky train yet?
No, I'm not going to.
I don't think I'm going to either. And it's weird. There's been a couple of instances now over the last, I guess, since Elon Musk has been in charge of Twitter. It feels like every few months we go through a phase where people are like, oh my gosh, Twitter's going down, and it never has. And there was Threads a year ago.
Yes.
That was like the Instagram tie-in, which I thought there was a chance for that one just because they already had, I guess, kind of, the Facebook backing as well. So there was a chance that, that could really get off the ground, just never did. And then now you have this, apparently Blue Sky has actually been around for a long time, but for some reason over the last, I think it's been since the election. And of course, Elon Musk's affiliation with, the side that won has driven a decent amount of people off of Twitter and into Blue Sky. But Twitter was already, even before all the Elon Musk stuff, Twitter was already probably the bottom tier when it comes to popularity between the 3 or 4 major social networking sites. Yeah. So I don't see how a new one has any chance at surpassing the biggest success that Twitter had at one point.
Yeah, I don't think it does, but I could
also
be wrong.
Shout out to Biscuit taking a nice big gulp in the background.
You can actually, every freaking time we record,
I love it. It's funny.
Shoot, now I lost my point. Thanks a lot, Biscuit.
Blue Sky.
Blue Sky. Oh, yes. Okay, you know what else I don't care about? If you're a celebrity, I really don't care if you're leaving. So you don't need to come up with this 18-year-old commitment type post about where you're going to school and why you're changing or why you're transferring. Nobody cares. Just leave the app. Nobody, literally, Gabrielle Union, nobody cares. Just go.
I don't even know what that is.
As Abby likes to
Gabrielle
say,
Union.
This isn't.
Is that a human being or is that a company?
No, that's a human being. She's an actress. Oh. She's married to Dwayne Wade.
Oh.
She felt it necessary to release 8 paragraphs as to why she was leaving X. But by the way, John, she still has 13 different social media accounts, so she's really making a point. It's because of the toxicity of X. Anyway, I'm getting off point. But as Abby likes to say, this isn't an airport. You don't have to announce your departure. I'm going to use that because nobody cares. Either use the app or don't.
People love to, and I guess maybe we do to a certain extent, but just in different ways. People love to act like, it doesn't on any social media platform, that people give a shit what they have to say. And I think there's a level of us, like, we know people don't necessarily care what we have to say, but there's a different sector of people that they use their platform because, and there are some people who legitimately have influence. There's some who clearly don't, but they think they do, and they just like to scream into the ether, and it's just a bunch of nonsense. But again, we're doing the same thing. It's just more fun, I guess. We're not being miserable over this type of stuff.
Yeah, and we're not trying to create content by acting like crazy people.
We're not outraged. Imagine this whole podcast, we came with a topic each and every other week, and we just decided we were going to bitch about something we hated in society.
Of things we hate. This is today's things we hate list, and this is why we're going to complain about it. Boy, that would be fun to listen to. But do you know what? I bet that podcast, maybe not us doing it, but I bet that podcast would do well. That's how. And that's terrible.
The thing is, people love to be miserable.
Yes, I don't understand it. Like, I hate. Don't you know when you're like in a grouchy mood, and you're just like, I hate this. I hate this for everybody around me. Like, I don't, for me, it's fine if I'm not in a good mood because I'm like, I know how to deal with myself. But for everybody else around me, like, there's times I'll like, hey, I'm not in a good mood today. Like, I'm sorry. I'm tired. I didn't eat, whatever the case.
That's just self-awareness. There's a lot of people who don't have that self-awareness. Yeah.
But to your point, when people just like, they love to be miserable, they like to find things to complain about. I'm like, God, like why? Why is your life got to be this miserable? That sounds the least fun.
Yeah. I don't want to get into assuming, but there are certain things that pop into my head. I feel like most of those people, or I don't want to say most, there's probably a certain amount, whatever that number may be, of people that they spend a lot of their time more than likely in isolation. And we all have moments, I feel like, where we have too much time to ourselves and we don't always make the best decisions. And there's people who have probably abused that time, and it turns into things that, they don't want them to be. And that's just unfortunate for those people. I hate saying those people. For some reason, the phrase "those people" sounds like it sounds very demeaning. I don't mean for it to come off that way.
No, but there are people that they're only happy when they're unhappy. And I feel bad for those people.
Yeah, and I will say this. I'm very glad the election cycle was over because those last couple of weeks, it didn't affect me, but I could see how it was affecting others, and it was just not fun to be around.
It rarely is.
I hate seeing family members that normally get along just fine just start completely, I don't want to say they're hating each other, but they just, one side or the others, and they're never going to understand. That's just I was going to say the beauty of it all. It's more like the ugliness of it all. Democrats will never agree with Republicans and vice versa. So why put it out there on Facebook, Twitter, any of that? Because what else needs to be said, right? There's always going to be disagreement.
Yeah, correct. We just got to learn to live through conflict because it's not going anywhere.
What else? I got so many weird things on here. This is one I've had on here for a while, Dustin. And this is mainly just for me. And I'm curious if you've ever been in an environment where you've experienced this. So at work,
I'm intrigued.
For some reason, whenever they were moving us into our new building, the beautiful iHeart Studios on 4th Street Live, for some reason, they thought that the bathrooms were the least important, at least when it comes to the amount of stalls and urinals there are there. So on a regular day, there's probably, 30 people max, and that may even be stretching it a little bit, 25 to 30 people in our building with, men and women, of course. But for both, I believe for the women, I do know for sure for the men, there is one urinal and one stall for the entire company. Again, not 25 to 30 people. It's not a lot. But here's the thing. Whenever you have two people in that bathroom and one of them is the stall and somebody is using that stall for, I don't want to say extracurriculars, but maybe they're just having a bad day.
That
and
makes
they're
it
on
sound really bad.
Yeah.
Sure.
They're on the toilet a little longer than the average visit. Sometimes, and I think maybe I'm answering my own question when I do this, right? By just kind of blaming the company and realizing that they should have just built a bigger bathroom. But there was an experience probably a couple of months ago where I went in just to, do my business and get out. But the person on the other side using the stall, they were breathing very heavily, and you could kind of tell there was some struggle going on. And I remember at the time thinking one of two things. All right, one, they can't help themselves, and you hope that's the answer. But two, if you're just not aware of how loud you're breathing, maybe, I don't know. Now that I'm saying all this out loud, I feel like maybe I'm just an asshole with all of this. But how would you react? I didn't say anything to this person, but I just remember thinking, like, dude, just take a deep breath and let's just, get through this, right?
We're gonna get through this together. Yeah, I just don't say. I just go in, go out, do what I had to do. I do think they should have built a bigger bathroom. I don't know that solves the problem though, because you can have that issue in a bathroom where there's 50 stalls. You don't.
But here's the thing: 9 times out of 10, if you're in a regular, public style of bathroom, there's enough room. Like, there's never going to, like, let's just say you're in a big bathroom and there's 6 or 7 stalls. I would reckon to think that there's never going to be a time where all of those stalls are in use, right? The only exception would be maybe like if you're at a stadium and it's halftime and everybody's going in and out at the same time. That's the one exception for that. But in a work environment, you can remove yourself and, go to a further away place. And, again, I initially thought I was going to blame the human being who was breathing heavily, but I think this is more of just a problem that should have been avoided by making a bigger bathroom.
I think that is, yes. I think that is the
fun. We can talk through things and figure out our own issues on this podcast.
Yeah, you didn't even need my help. You didn't not even need my help. But I don't think I've ever been in that situation. Or if I did, I just forgot it immediately.
What is the most uncomfortable public? It doesn't have to necessarily be a workplace bathroom incident, but this public restroom experience you've had?
I don't know if I've had.
Oh, while you're thinking, another one that's awkward, and we can make this in go back to Memorial Stadium here for a second, back to Indiana sports, and the Memorial Stadium piss troughs. That's weird. That's very outdated. We don't need piss troughs anywhere in this day and age.
No, we don't. I'm not a fan of those, but some places still have them. Still.
Yeah.
Yep, they're not. I don't think I have.
Have you ever? Let me put it this way: have you ever been the person having just a loud?
No,
we're really getting into it.
No.
You've never been the loud person in the bathroom.
Nope.
I have that fear sometimes, where I'm not the heavy breather, but just the bowel movement is just a little too much. That's probably the best way to say that.
There was there was one time when I was working at Ivy Tech Community College, and I worked out in, people are not going to know this, but near Lafayette is like a small town called Monticello, and it was just like a satellite campus. There was maybe 100 students there on a good day. And I did have a sausage biscuit from McDonald's with a Coke, and that didn't sit well with me. But I didn't have any issues, but I did get into the building a little bit early that day. Because
you don't want people to hear. You don't want people to hear those exciting moments.
You don't want those to be broadcast live.
This is the last story, and it's maybe I shouldn't end on this, but it is related, and I may or may not ever have another reason to tell this story. So when I was in college and living in the dorms, I remember having a dream, and in the dream, at the very end, before I woke up, all the people that I see in the dream begin vomiting. And that's all I'll say without being too disgusting about it.
Yeah.
I wake up to use the bathroom, and I don't have to vomit or anything, but somebody comes running in, goes to the stall next to me, and begins vomiting. Very weird experience, at least with the timing of it. Almost like my dream was trying to tell me, like, hey, you're about ready to see this. Again, very weird and kind of spooky. Maybe it was a coincidence, probably was, but I've always remembered that because it was so weird with the timing of it.
Have you ever had a dream so real that you don't know what reality is anymore? I'm going to give you this example. So
Yeah, go
when
ahead.
this was when I was in high school. So this was many, many years ago. I had a really good friend, and we had like groups of friends and groups of people. So it wasn't just like, but this one girl, I remember in a dream, I remember thinking, like I had a dream that she was pregnant, and it was just like matter of fact, like everybody knew that
Yeah.
it wasn't a surprise. And it was such a realistic dream that I could not remember. This happened on like a Friday. I remember I was like away from school for long enough, maybe like over spring break or something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember like for days not knowing. And this was at the time when like text messages cost a penny a letter or
Oh,
whatever it
yeah.
was. So you had to be very selective. I could not remember for days if she was actually pregnant or if that was just a dream. Like I
Did you
could
end up
not. So I
reaching
had to
out?
text. I texted one of my no, I didn't reach out to her. That would be very
Okay.
insulting. But
It's
I did
probably
reach
pretty
out to one
smart.
of my
Yeah.
friends, and yeah, I reached out to one of my friends, and I was like, "Hey, by the way, I had this dream. That's not real." Like he's like, no, "Are you an idiot?" Like, of course that's not real. I'm like, okay, well, I just telling you, I had a very realistic dream, and I cannot separate reality from the dream world right now.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever had that happen, but I have had dreams where like they've shaken me so much, like to the point of fear, to where like you wake up and
Yes.
you almost, it's not necessarily like the like I know you and Mitchell have talked about like the sleep paralysis, at least I think. Is that what y'all have talked
Yep.
about before?
Yep.
That's not what this is for me, but I've had probably 2 or 3 instances where I've woken up from something that was just so, again, not that it was realistic, but it was just so frightening that you almost, your body takes probably, if I remember right, a couple of hours to just shake off what you experienced. And I don't want to detail some of them just because it's just, it's not that it's not safe for work type stuff. It's just very uncomfortable things to talk about. And I mean, maybe we'll explore those someday, but I'd rather not get. This hasn't been a deep into the weeds episode, so
Yeah.
I'm not feeling like going down that path right
Yeah.
now.
Well, maybe we can talk about it on a Halloween episode since
Yeah,
Christmas is
because
coming
that
up.
it would
We
be
could
more fitting. It would be more fitting.
jump the gun on a Christmas holiday by talking about Halloween.
Get a little spoopy. Get a little
Wait,
spoopy again.
have we talked? That's right. Did we talk about favorite Thanksgiving sides? I feel like since this is going to be the last show before
That's
Thanksgiving,
true.
we should have a little bit of food conversation. And we don't have
We can
much
end on
time.
food conversation. And I do, we
But
did
what
do
is
the random, this was probably in September. Do you remember when we did the Thanksgiving Pop-Tart flavors?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I thought we talked about Thanksgiving foods. Okay.
So Thanksgiving, I'll say this. This is probably just basic. Turkey's my favorite. But one thing I've always wanted to try, and it's super expensive, but I think I'd like to splurge on it eventually. And especially if my wife and I ever host Thanksgiving, is order the Popeyes Cajun turkey, because that thing looks freaking delicious. Just because when you think of a regular turkey, like the stereotypical turkey look, right? Like it looks very bland. It tastes very bland. I mean, you can spice it up and make it as good as you want to, depending on how good you are cooking it. But there's something about the look of this bird, Dustin, that just, like, even thinking about it makes your mouth water. That Popeyes, it sounds like I'm doing an ad for them, and I'd
It
be more than
does.
happy to. Send me
Are we
Popeyes,
getting?
send me a turkey. I'll cook it and pimp it out, and it'll be a whole holiday season thing, because I want to try. It's like $99, and I don't even know if that's with shipping, but I've seen
$99
videos of
for
what
a
it looks.
Popeyes turkey.
It used to be cheaper. I believe when it first came out, it was like 50 or 60, but over the years, it's gotten more expensive, as you would expect. But I've seen videos of what they look like when they come, like when they're finished cooking or whatever. When you yourself finish cooking them, they look freaking delicious. Because again, it comes, seasoned
Right.
with the Popeyes love, right? And so that's something that I'd love to
Okay.
try on Thanksgiving eventually. I mentioned it to my mom the other day, and she looked into it and she was like, "Oh no, that's it's a little expensive."
Little expensive. I just get the small, like 3-pound turkey, and I will season it appropriately. Throw in some carrots, celery, maybe some potatoes, some onion, little chicken broth. Throw it in the oven for X amount of hours.
Do you do the butter. Cooking for Thanksgiving?
You know what? Last year I think we got a rotisserie chicken.
That's not a bad idea though. I can dig a rotisserie chicken.
It was a really good. Now, typically in the past, I have cooked. But I love making my like every Thanksgiving, and I don't know that I'll do all of it this year, but I usually do a turkey, mashed potatoes, macaroni and cheese, green bean casserole, gravy, and then rolls. And then I'll usually have like a pecan pie, bourbon pecan pie.
Are you Sister Schubert's? I feel like that's the stereotypical like rolls that people get, or do you like custom do them like to yourself?
No, Hawaii. I get the what are they called? King's Hawaiian rolls.
Okay. My grandmother, or I guess it's my great grandmother. I don't even know what kind of rolls these are, but they're the dinner rolls that look like the little mushrooms. You know what I'm talking about? I don't know if there's a name for those.
I know what you're talking about though.
But it's weird, like, because I remember when I was a kid thinking like that was just commonplace, but apparently it's not. Or maybe it was back in the day, but now I feel like everybody just defaults to the generic Sister Schubert's that are literally, I mean, almost like you're eating. And it's not that they're bad. I could probably eat like 6 of them, and you say they're good, but like when you compare them to others, they're not the same. But I don't even know what those things are made out of. It's probably cardboard that's been processed into tasting like food.
Could be.
I know people who used to work at a Sister Schubert's plant, and that's what makes me think it's just complete fake. I mean, honestly, half the crap we buy at the store is fake, but you know.
Correct. But that's okay. A lot of it's delicious, and that's all that matters.
And that's why we are Americans, and we don't care about half the things that go into our body. That's why half of these episodes in the last few months have been about our fast food adventures. I feel like
that's true. That's true. It has. They have been about fast food adventures, which I did have a solid. McDonald's got me out of a pinch a few weeks ago.
Did they?
I had not had dinner. Yeah, it was like 10 o'clock. Everything's closed. But you know what was lighting up that night sky, John? Those golden arches, baby. And I pulled in and I got a double quarter pounder, French fries, and a drink after covering a Purdue game, and it got me back home to St. Louis that night.
And
thank you, McDonald's.
The real question here, though, is did you regret it the next day?
No, I didn't actually.
And that's the best.
Was so hungry.
That's when it's the most valuable, I feel like, when you don't regret it the next day.
I did not. Well, okay. I didn't feel like I was going to go run a 5K.
That's fine. But as long as you don't feel like, oh my God, why did I eat that quarter pounder?
Yeah, I did not feel like death, but I also did not feel, I don't think I got home at like 2:30 in the morning. So I also was probably a combination of the food and also not sleeping.
Yeah. Well, I hope you didn't regret listening to every single minute of this podcast. And how was that right there, Dustin? I was thinking about that for the last 20 seconds while you were finishing up your thought. I was like, good. This might suck, or it might completely.
That's a good transition.
Looking forward to doing this again. Hopefully we'll all three be back in a couple of weeks for our next episode. We'll be squarely into Christmas time. Maybe we'll revisit the movie conversation with Mitchell, or maybe he'll visit another Christmas market. Who the hell knows? But we'll talk about it all and more then. And as always, haven't done this in a while, but if you want to hit the hotline, you can do so at 502-830-9195. Tell us why you hated Thanksgiving, why you love Thanksgiving, why you love or hate Christmas. Your least favorite Christmas movies, your favorite Christmas movies, any of that nonsense. We'd love to hear it, and it could be fun. So until next time, this has been another edition of Out of Touch. I just realized I didn't play the outro music, but who cares? We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.